Hello, everybody. I'm here today with Matthew Featherstone. He is the owner of Hiatus Cheesecake. Hey, Matthew, welcome to this week's Business Spotlight interview.
Hello.
Hey, really glad you had some time and appreciate you taking time with us today. Let's just get right to the questions, all right?
Okay. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Matthew, tell us a little bit about Hiatus Cheesecake.
So I guess the best way to do is just to say how everything began. I used to bake bread with my mom. She would bake bread pretty much every day. So one day, one of my cousins came in with the cheesecake from Cheesecake Factory. I tried it and fell in love, instantly ran and grabbed one of her cookbooks and made my first cheesecake that turned into me making cheesecake for family, friends, and events. And eventually, I ended up in the restaurant industry. So about 10 years in, I just randomly made a cheesecake and decided to take it to work. All my coworkers, my boss, the executive chef, they all went crazy and they told me I should go into business. So that's exactly what I did. I started a company called Hiatus Cheesecake. Now we call it Hiatus Cheesecake because it's supposed to represent a temporary break from your diet. The portion sizes are small, so you don't overindulge. Initially, we started selling cheesecakes to restaurants. That was actually the first restaurant that we got into. And then by 2019, I was in upwards of about 10 restaurants or so on my own. I then became a vendor of Cisco, and Cisco took us into about 40 restaurants. And then when COVID hit, of course, we lost the majority of that business, like most, but we were able to maintain 2 hospitals here in Baltimore. And then we also became vendors of Whole Foods markets during COVID. So we were able to be in a Whole Foods in downtown Baltimore and also one in DC. Then by 2021, my business partner, Brandon, he came on board. And from then we would increase into about 30 grocery stores. And now in this year, we have been featured on QVC and HSN. We onboarded with Gourmet Foods International as a distributor. And more recently, we were actually one of the 5 winners of the Kroger Go Fresh, Go Local Business Accelerator. Of which 1,600 businesses applied, and we were one of the 5 winners. So now we will be launching into Kroger stores in Q4 of next year, in 2023. So that's kind of how everything began.
Wow, that's an awesome story, actually, and some pretty quick ramp up and with some of those successes. So especially given the pandemic, probably throwing a huge kink in everything, right? So
yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. So speaking of the pandemic, I mean, what was the biggest impact? I mean, how it affected everybody differently. Some businesses came to a screeching halt, others flourished. What was the biggest impact for you?
I mean, to lose that much of business in that short of time was very impactful. And then too, at the time, I was still bartending. I was bartending and also running Hiatus. So I lost both incomes from the bar and from Hiatus. Those 2 hospitals it's a company here in Baltimore, and they actually help link small businesses with larger contracts. And that company is called Corate. They were able to help me to maintain through COVID. So having a hospital through COVID would certainly help because they were pretty much the only thing that was open. But the biggest challenge was even with the employees that I had, it was keeping them with whatever income that I could continue to help them with. The being able to still pay for the facility that I was working out of was a huge challenge. And then with all of that stress, still trying to get what pretty much everyone was going through, trying to figure out what government assistance you could get in order to keep you afloat. Excuse me. So it was just a combination of those things that really made it tough. But we, by the grace of God, we were able to pull out between Whole Foods and the hospitals and some government assistance that we did receive. We were able to pull our way out of it.
Yeah, excellent. Was there any actions you took because of the pandemic to pivot or shift other than getting with that, the company that helped you, get into those larger contracts?
Yeah. I think the biggest, so initially, I was more focused on getting into restaurants. I think that the biggest pivot for me was including grocery stores and really understanding supply chain. That was a big pivot for us. Of course, we still are servicing restaurants, and that's something that we're going to continue to do. But getting into it, the CPG space and building the supply chain was probably one of the best things that we could do to pull
Excellent.
out.
So, other than the pandemic, what have been the biggest issues and challenges you've had to overcome?
Being able to grow and we're growing pretty quickly, we'll say. However, being able to grow and then still figure out knowing your numbers well enough to know how to structure that growth, and also getting access to the capital that you need to support that growth. That has been a major challenge, and we've gotten a lot of help from a lot of really strong mentors in government programs that we've attached ourselves to, that's helped us to, learn how to slowly structure and scale growth successfully.
Excellent. Yeah. A lot of people think, wow, you grow fast. That's great. Well, no, growing too fast can kill you sometimes, right? Kill the business.
Especially if you don't have the right partners in place to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's been the biggest learning since you've been a business owner?
Actually, I found the biggest learning as a business owner has been about myself. I feel that the uncomfortability of growing both as a person and in business is kind of like you're wind together in it. And I was talking to someone the other day about how to grow, because she says so I'm talking, it's actually one of my coworkers. So she normally feels like she's in a place in her life where she's trying to figure out to add what's that next thing, and she was like, oh, you have so many things that you're doing. Like you're doing great. I said, well, yeah, in order to do, but that same way that it feels in order to grow from, you say that you feel doing nothing, it's uncomfortable to put yourself in a different place to learn something different. So as you build and add more and more on your plate, I'm starting to learn to be comfortable in that chaotic place. And know that it's going to be chaotic, but structure my way through it so that I can get to the next level, and then understand what that plateau will be, and then do it again and keep growing and growing and growing, and just learning that feeling and being okay with it.
Yeah, that's a great point, because in business you have to constantly learn. I mean, when you stop learning, you stop growing, you stop earning. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the learning piece is as important or more important than what you're doing over here in the business, right? Because you got to grow. So that's awesome. Anything else that you've learned about yourself during this journey?
Things that I've learned about myself. I've learned that I've been learning how to push myself. I do know that sometimes, because this journey has been tough, for me, besides just scaling this past year, I've also had health issues to deal with that I haven't had before. So learning, I really feel like I've learned that I can push myself harder or endure through more things than I realize. Like sometimes you feel like things are too much, but you can, if you just, of me, well, I don't know whatever your source is. For me, I pray about it and have faith and push through, and as long as I just keep pushing through that, then I'll be okay. So I'm learning resilience.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. You got to be resilient as a business owner. That's for sure. Yeah. So just a couple more questions. What's the future look like, and what do you see as the main challenges moving forward for Hiatus Cheesecake?
The future looks pretty bright. So the distributor that we are with, also we have interest from some other pretty large clients and grocery store chains on top of Kroger. So right now we are looking for co-packing manufacturers all across the country. I mean, we've been talking to people in Kansas City and Texas and Chicago and Michigan and Philadelphia, just really trying to understand or learn the co-packer before we, because it's like a marriage, right? You have to really kind of date, make sure you're compatible And that's what we're doing right now, trying to lock that co-packer in. And once that happens, the plan is to use that co-packer to build out all of our retail nationally as we build our manufacturing capabilities here in the Mid-Atlantic. We've also are working with 3POs to help expand our e-commerce space nationally as well. And between the building out our e-commerce space and us working with the co-packers, hopefully we will be a household name in about a good 2-3 years, all across the country.
Yeah, that's an awesome goal. And from the looks of things, very achievable for you. So last question, what advice would you give anybody thinking about going into business?
Turn around. It's like joking. But I think do not take no for an answer. That's the biggest advice. I mean, make sure that be humble enough to learn from people in taking, and when I say that, when I say don't take no for an answer, I mean, don't let yourself say no to you. Like, oh, this isn't happening. Oh, it's not going to work. Find a way to make it work. Always find a way, and don't give up. Always find a way.
Yeah, those are some really wise words. So awesome. Well, Matthew, that wraps up the interview. Nice job. I really appreciate you taking time today.
Sure. Thank you for having me.